This program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
Good afternoon. Look at this fantastic scene we have in front of us. It is thirsty work being a large mammal such as an elephant. This herd, this mixed breeding herd, have all came down to the dam to drink. So once again, everyone, it's a pleasure having you on board because it's now time for your live safari through the African bush. Everyone is drinking. The youngsters, the mothers, the teenagers, and there's a big bull in there somewhere too. Wow, it's windy today. It's very windy, but it's hot, and that is, of course, why the elephants have came down to Treehouse Dam to drink. My name is Lauren. I do have Theo on camera, and we're coming to you live from Djuma Game Reserve here. It's 25 degrees Celsius today, which is extremely hot for winter. And I would love to just be diving into that dam with them. So we're not just coming to you live from Djuma. We have 5 different locations and 6 safari vehicles. So hopefully it will be a really exciting afternoon drive. But it's going to be even more exciting if you talk to us. Send in your comments and your questions using the hashtag WildEarth on Twitter, or you can use @FC on the YouTube chat and Twitch. Kids, if you're watching, please send in your questions also. You can email us at kidsquestions@wildearth.tv. Now I'm just going to go silent for a moment so you can hear the wonderful sounds of the elephants drinking.
Good afternoon from a fantastic afternoon at Tswalu Kalahari. It is such a pleasure having you with me. My name's Dylan, and today I'm just going out and exploring. I'm going to try and find an artful for you, but it's going to be very tricky, but we'll give it a bash. But I just want to look at this incredible nest I'm sitting on. Now, some of you, before you panic, you're like, oh, why are you sitting on top of the nest? I wanted to give you a demonstration of just how solid and massive these nests are. And this is still a very small one for the species, the sociable weaver nest. And occasionally, I mean, you'll get 2, 3, even 4 male cheetah that we've seen at a time sitting up on top of these nests, and they actually scent mark on top of them and they use them as vantage points. We've had leopards on kills up nests like this. So they are immensely strong. The tree that this is in is a camel thorn tree, incredibly strong branches. So I think, you know, me sitting up here is going to make not one jot of difference to the existence of this nest or these branches. The thing that I'm marveling at while I'm sitting up here, and I've just got to say this, is that if you think of a nest this size, like I said, this is a very average size nest. One piece of material at a time collected by one bird. They fly out, come back, within a radius of about 700 meters is where they're collecting the nesting material from. And when I look at a nest that I'm sitting on here, and I just think of the staggering amount of energy that's gone into making a nest like this. If you think in terms of the energy that the birds are burning, and the total amount of kilometers flown in order to get this amount of nesting material and make this, these birds would be earning Voyager miles a dime a dozen to produce a nest of this size. And I also just love the perspective. It's like, okay, now I know why a cheetah sits up here looking out for prey, because it just works.
Good afternoon to all our viewers and welcome to andBeyond Ngala, where we have some lions this afternoon and they are sleeping right out in the riverbed in the sun. You can see some of them, their legs up in the air, like that little white one over there. She looks fast asleep. There's a cool breeze blowing and maybe they're just trying to cool down. I am Yapi, and behind the camera, like always, we have Owen. And we're Birmingham Pride this afternoon. And they are taking a good rest for now. They've been here all day. You can see over there we have some of them in the shade, a small little pocket huddled together. And then on the opposite side, the ones that we just saw sleeping out in the sun. It looks like some of the larger lionesses. You can see one's got a head up. If you look at the tail flicking, the ears are constantly flicking. All I can see is ears going. It looks like there's a lot of flies there bothering them. And I can imagine the way they've been laying next to each other, where they are together like that and quite warm. They must have been having quite a problem with the flies during this heat today. If we look back at these ones right behind them in the thick bush, Courtney, that's a very good question. To answer your question specifically with regards to size, I don't know an exact size or number, and that would also be determined by the size of the lion or the individual lion. Some lions are naturally larger than others. There is a young male, for instance, that moves with this pride that's not here at the moment, who's got massive feet, and we can clearly distinguish his from all of the others. But to give you a rough size reference, more or less the size of a man's fist. If it is clenched, it's more or less the size of the track at least. So once those lions extend their claws when they're about to grasp something, then it might be even as large as a man opening his hand. However, exact numbers, that would be changing from one lion to the next.
As one of the most efficient drinkers on the planet, elephants can not only dig for their own water if they have to, the adults can pull up about 12 litres in one draw through their trunk. It acts like a ginormous straw, a non-plastic straw, and they pull up about 12 litres in one go, and then they pour it into their mouth. They're not very good at pouring it into their mouth. They tend to spill a lot, but the trunk can hold around 12 litres, which is a huge volume of water. And of course, they pull up water, pull up water, pull up water, so you can only begin to imagine the volume that's going inside their bodies. And they use their incredibly powerful trunk to do this. The trunk doesn't just function as a straw, it functions as a snorkel. They use it to communicate. They use it to comfort. They also use it to smell. They actually possess a series of 7 olfactory terminals, which have millions and millions of receptors, and they're said to be even better smellers, if you like, than bloodhounds. Elephants are just incredible. They can actually detect water up to 12 miles away. So they know this water is here from very, very far. So we're going to just sit tight and enjoy this magical scene in front of us.
Hello everybody, lovely to see you, as of course we're about to go live. There's a vehicle coming past us, belching diesel into our faces. Trying to get him to go past before we go back to TV. What we're looking at is a Steenbok, of course. There we go. Is the Steenbok still there? Oh, look, it's flattened its little ears so that it becomes invisible. It's actually quite a cool sighting. And we have 2 minutes for the Steenbok to play ball with us before we go back to TV. I hope you're all having a lovely afternoon. I know that it's not afternoon wherever you happen to be in the world, unless you happen to find yourselves on the same latitude as we are, which I know very few of you are. So, for those of you in the States, I hope it's a good morning, and those of you in Australia, I hope it's a good evening. Right, so what I think we'll do is start with this picture of apparently nothing, and then, ta-da! So shall be revealed the Steenbok, and the audience on television will be sore amazed to the point of gasping. Right, let's zoom out, Craig, all the way. Yeah, look at that, eh? I'd say there's about a 10% chance the Steenbok will be there by the time we go back in. Now, we have got something very special over here. There is an animal in this picture, believe it or not, and I'm pretty sure you can't see it. I can only just see it, and the only reason I can see it is because I saw it lie down. There, in the shade there, is a Steenbok. Now, a Steenbok is normally relatively easily seen by its ears, which it sticks out, but this Steenbok thinks that it may have been spotted. And so what it's done is it's folded its ears back on its head. And we'll have a quick look at it with a super zoom now. My name is James Henry. Hello, I hope you're all having a wonderful day. On camera today is the fastest thumb in the West, Craig. Wonderful. Let's go back to our Steenbok. And we'll super zoom in on it. Did you all see it there? It is a little Steenbok ewe, or female. And there you can see the Steenbok. So, the point of this sighting is not to show you an unbelievable Steenbok sighting, but just to show you how brilliant they are at hiding themselves. So they're called a Steenbok, of course, because they are supposed to sit like a stone when they think they've been spotted, and that is exactly what this one is doing. Taylor, you want to know how hot it is here? I'm told it's around 25 degrees Celsius or so, which is not too bad. There is a driving wind coming out of the northwest, which is, well, relatively unpleasant. It feels a little bit like being in Cape Town. And that may indicate that there is some weather coming in, but August is normally a bit of a windy month in this part of the world. So it's not very surprising that there's a bit of a wind blowing. For this area, this is quite windy.
Our elephants have all vanished. They also don't like the wind. I don't like the wind, but they've vanished into the thicket. We are going to try and catch up with them. We have a monitor lizard down here that we want to say hello to. Trusty old water monitor lizard that's always hanging around bodies of water. This is a nice view we have. Look how long its tail is. I think it's pretty much the same length as the body. And they use this for many different reasons. They can use it as a powerful rudder. They can also use it to store fat, just like crocodiles. Energy sources for when winter gets too harsh and too cold. They can use the fat that's stored in that really powerful tail. They can also smack you around the face with it. If you're a predator and you try to eat this lizard, they can give you a... Oh, here's more elephants. I wonder if they're stragglers or if they're with that herd or if they're just on their own. Hello, I think we've got more elephants coming to drink. They could just be young boys, young bachelor boys. If they're young boys, then they could just be on their own. They see us. They're probably a little bit upset that it's windy. Neil, you're asking how much water does an elephant need to drink? Oh no, they're going to go behind us. Don't go behind us. Every day. Now, it does depend. It really depends on their age and their sex, if they're male or female, and how young they are. But they are said to consume a lot of water in the day, especially in summer. It will differ between summer and winter. Their diet changes as well. So in summer, there's a lot of water around, and also there's moisture in the food that they eat. The grass will contain moisture, and that sort of adds to their requirements. So around 160 litres per day for the big bulls. And that's the biggest. It will differ for the much smaller females and the young calves. So they're walking behind the car right now. I think they're coming to drink at the other side. So just bear with us. They're coming. I think these are two young bulls. They've maybe been ousted from the herd already. Or they're just being lazy and straggling behind. Here we go. So 160 litres of water per day is a lot. And big bulls can also consume 450 kilograms of organic matter per day. That's incredible amounts. They're not good at digesting it, but they can still consume it. Here we go. Jacqueline, you're saying you love cheeky boy elephants. Me too. They have a very boisterous nature about them. They like to think they're bigger than they are, but it's all just for show. Boy elephants are just naughty. They like to cause trouble. And the older bulls are normally very gentlemen. It's actually the females, the mothers, that you have to worry about. The mothers can be very sensitive and very protective of their offspring, of course. Oh, I'm thirsty watching these, but I'm still going to sit here and I may actually have a drink myself.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to andBeyond Phinda Private Game Reserve. My name is Jared, and we've got Marcel behind the camera with you. And what a great way to start the afternoon here at Phinda, with mountain pride, doing what lions love to do on Phinda, climb trees. So we've had one of the females up and down in the tree. I see the older females just climbed out of the tree while I turned my back. And so we've got one adult female in the tree and one cub in the tree who seems like it's about to climb down. Oh, one of the mother's going to climb down. Oh, she's she's busy pawing at the club. Like, get down, get out of here. You're going to hurt yourself. Get out of the tree. And then you've got the other 4 cubs down at the bottom. And what I found absolutely interesting is that it's always the one cub, one of the females, that keeps climbing into the trees. And the other 4 seem to be a little bit more reluctant to climb into the trees. That is so awesome. This morning we had them in the tree when they ran off to steal the kill from the Impala. Now the warthog, and now they've come back again. So the cubs were born just before lockdown, and so that's over 120 days now that we've pretty much been in lockdown in South Africa, a bit longer than that. So these cubs are probably about 4 or 5 months old now. I'm hoping that one of the cubs see, if you look over to the right, you can just see the black tips of the tail of the mother sitting in the tree. And sometimes that, or cubs will use the tails to play with. And I've just got this image in my head of a cub jumping up, grabbing onto the tail and swinging like Tarzan. I think it'll be quite hilarious to see, but probably be a little bit painful for the female on the tree. But you can see the cub just below her is struggling to stay in the tree. I don't know. Oh, about to fall. No, it's got its grip again. I think it's trying to just rest up in the view of the tree there. This morning when we watched this exact cub in the tree, it sat in that spot and it wouldn't allow any of the other four to climb up. Every single time they try to climb, it would swat them back down. So we've got a leopard in the tree now, I see. Gee, she's just lying just like a leopard, although struggling to find a comfortable spot. And you'll probably find that is because she's got a nice full belly. Yesterday they were feeding on a big male Ngala. This morning they stole a kill from a leopard, a warthog that the leopard had just killed. And so her belly is quite full. So I can't imagine she's going to be able to lie in that spot for too long, because it's going to be quite uncomfortable. Seems like the cub is trying to reposition, but she's completely blocked its path further up the tree. Oh, having a little look at us. Let's see if it's going to climb down now. It's probably not going to do it too gracefully. No, thought about it. And you'll see the cub at the bottom right is watching the tails. I wonder if it's going to grab them.
I've got to show you something so incredible, so amazing here, which I absolutely love, and it never ceases to amaze me. You've got this very average sized acacia. In fact, it's a very young acacia of a camel thorn, but what I want to show you is look how densely packed it is with thorns. And typically your smaller acacias have got more thorns on because they need more protection, because they're more susceptible to predation. But the really fun thing that I want to show you, this is one tree in this massive landscape with millions upon millions of trees of all different kinds. But look what we've got. In the single tree, there's at least 2 different nests. There's a dove's nest at the top there, and there's a shrike's nest tucked into this little fork over here. So the point that I'm making is, on even one single tree, in such a small tree, there's at least 2 different species. It just shows you what else is actually out there that we can still find. So much to find. Yeah, so it just amazes me, or it never ceases to amaze me actually, of just how complex these systems are. And I'll keep coming back to it. It's not about the individual bird. It's not about keeping a checklist of how many birds you've seen in your guiding career or your trips in Africa. I'm trying to understand what these systems are about, the complexity surrounding, and we'll never get there. But it's fun trying, and I think it's always far more fun doing that than actually just keeping a simple checklist and knowing you can rattle off the names of 500 or 700 or 800 different birds that you've seen in Southern Africa but know nothing about them. Oh, Caitlin's asked a wonderful question there. So the question that Caitlin's asked is, what is the main kind of leaves that they're using to make these nests? It is massively varied. That big nest that I was sitting on earlier, there was actually very spiky things that I was sitting on over there. So they're using sometimes large branches, and if you look at things like lappet-faced vultures, secretary birds, they're using big, thick branches. Black eagles use twigs that are 3-4 centimeters in diameter sometimes. You have big branches. These little guys, these two separate species, you've got a dove's nest that is using very fine, delicate twigs, some of which are actually from these acacias, but they're not harvested off the tree, they're actually collected on the ground. And then this other, what looks like a shrike's nest to me over here, this little one over here, it's got lots of very, very fine, delicate material, mostly grasses. But even within that, you can get nests that are comprised of a number of different nesting materials, depending at what point the nest structure is. In other words, if you've got your main structure, they might be using coarser materials, and as they work into the bowl of the nest where the eggs are going to be laid, the material becomes finer and finer and finer, and obviously it needs to be, because it needs to be warmer and protective of those eggs. But I just love the fact that you got this tiny little tree over here, and just within it there's two nests. These nests are not active, they are not from this season, they're probably from the previous season, but it just goes to show you can go past any tree or bush here and you will find something interesting in it.
As you will at any bit of water. Here we have got a 3-banded plover, and this 3-banded plover has a partner or friend, probably a romantic partner, with whom they will make other 3-banded plovers. And what they're doing, both of them, is looking for little invertebrates. So anything, insect, spider, snail, they'll take whatever they can on the shores of the water. Their speciality is the shores of the water. If you look very closely, they've got really pretty eyes. Yellow and orange. Now, the other thing that I often see at this particular pan is the blue waxbill, and I can hear them calling. Pss, 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 pss. And also one of my favourites, the green-winged Pytilia. I was hoping one of them would come down here and have a drink, but so far I have been disappointed. I've just heard them in the bushes. You can unfortunately not hear a lot of bird calls right now because of the driving northwest wind. So I've been going from waterhole to waterhole, rather hoping that there might be an elephant or two having a drink like Lauren found, because it is quite a hot day. So far, just birds. Simple, these birds will eat any kind of insect that is small enough for them to catch, basically. You won't find them going into the grasses and trying to catch things like grasshoppers or mantids or that sort of thing. So it would normally be little spiders, which are obviously not insects, they are arachnids, but they are invertebrates. Water spiders, mollusks, so sort of little tiny snails and that sort of thing. And then any kind of insect that happens to find itself on the shores of the water. So it might be little flies, maybe bees, maybe little wasps that come down to fetch mud or have a drink. They would be caught and eaten by this bird. And if you want an extensive list of what they eat, I can give that to you. Beetles, a lot of fly larvae, and then sometimes crustaceans, which would include little crabs, but I struggle to believe that they would find a crab in here. They might. And then small mollusks, so like snails, and worms, any worms that they might find. A lot of animals, invertebrate animals, will lay their eggs in water, and those will hatch as larvae, often in the form of some kind of a worm, and they'll eat those. And then there are other kinds of worms that you find that live as adult worms in the water, especially dirty, mucky water like this, and the 3-banded plover will devour those. You'll probably find that they've got a really strong constitution, that the digestive juices are very strong, and that many of the worms that they would eat would easily become parasites in our bodies. So if we were to drink the same water, we might do ourselves a bit of damage internally. whereas for the three-banded plover, it is not the case. It has evolved to make use of potentially harmful organisms to big mammals. Now from here, I'm going to head off in a westerly direction because I did hear one or two impala going which made me think maybe they'd seen a predator, but it might just have been two rams having a bit of a fight with each other. I'm not sure. But I don't think our blue waxbills and our green-winged pytilias are going to come down here just now. And so on we shall go. Well, just quickly, sorry, let's have a quick look up there in the top of the tree. There are a whole lot of starlings. And those starlings, if you listen very carefully, are a mixed flock. They're making two different kinds of calls. You'll have heard that. That's one of them. And then the others are going. So we've got a greater blue-eared glossy starling there, and also the Cape glossy starling.
So we have found a couple of Impala rams that are sparring, but also being quite vigilant. There have been lions walking through the area this morning. Maybe one of their number was taken by the lions. He saw that they had a bit of a belly full. But it's interesting to watch them nonetheless. We've come down to the low areas in order to see what's happening closer to Leopard Dam. Hi, I'm Mike, and behind the camera is Gert. And as you know, we are here at Ecotraining's Pridelands Conservancy, and we're glad to have you here. As you see, we are just looking at these Impala rams, and they are half fighting but half freaking out about something in the distance. I'm not sure what they've spotted. We just stopped with them to see what it is exactly that's got their attention. Remember, when they are sparring like this, they become very, very vulnerable to predators. I don't see any movement, but this Impala on the left is definitely incredibly alert. You see its posture leaning forward, and every now and again you hear the sharp exhalation of air. Let's see if we can hear. Oh. There they fight. Short, intense bouts at the moment, and slowly the intensity rises and rises until usually there's a victor that then chases the loser off. But you see, they have to. There's no other rams around here that I see, so they have to be very vigilant. So they fight quickly, intensely, and then they stop and they look all over. I almost feel like they're just alarm calling to make any predator that's around think that it's been spotted and hopefully leave. Or maybe it's trying to distract its opponent. I don't know. It's very interesting. I'm not going to move. Play out. It's very interesting what's going on. I wonder if they're going to continue fighting. Wonderful, wonderful. We're back from going into an ad break, and we're just going to move forward a little bit to get a little closer to these Impalas, just to see if we can get around. There's a bit of a termite mound in front of us, and I just want to be able to see what's beyond the termite mound. I don't think there's anything there. If there was a predator, they wouldn't continue the sparring match that they're having. I'm also just going slowly and carefully. I don't want to disturb them. They're quite focused on each other right now. It would be great to be able to get a slightly clearer view of what's happening, so we don't get to see these fights too often. Is that all right for you, Gert? I think it's going to be okay. Alright, looks like the two Impala rams are going their separate ways. They've had their little tussle. Someone has been decided as the winner, and it needs to go no further. Well, I guess that was short and sweet, right? Everything in the bush is about who's stronger, and also about avoiding getting injured. So, of course, they're not going to fight to the death just for the sake of it. They've established who's stronger, who's the winner. You'll see Ngala and Kudu also, they stand next to each other and they do this thing called a lateral display, where they erect all their hair and stuff to make sure that they are as big as possible to intimidate the opponent into not fighting them at all, which is probably people do it. I guess that's why a lot of people maybe go to the gym. Bigger and welcome back, everyone. Well, the two Impalas did end up moving off. They disappeared one into the drainage line and one up into the hills here, and whatever it was that was disturbing them, I think it was nothing, to be honest. I think it was just the wind. It's going to get windier. By 11 o'clock this evening, the wind is going to be a gale force, and it's going to continue the whole day tomorrow. So most of the animals, I don't know how, they maybe can sense these kind of things. Roslyn, the horns of an Impala are very, very strong. It's bone inside of a keratin sheath. So our hair is made of keratin. So when you compress that keratin, and it becomes quite hard and resilient, and that covers the outside of the horn, and it's like a bone, it's very strong, and if it breaks off, it'll never grow back. So it has to be very strong because they do this fighting all the time. So Rosalind, it's quite strong, it's quite tough. It won't break off easily. And it takes a long time to grow. An Impala ram will probably only be fully grown and horns as big as possible at about 4 years old.
So unfortunately these youngsters have climbed out of the tree. We still only had the one cub up in the tree, and for about 20 minutes we had the 4 others sitting right at the base, kind of hoping and wishing they could be brave enough to climb up. And then when the 2 females climbed out of the trees, I think that the youngsters decide best not to tempt fate. So now they've lain off to the side, but I'm just going to ask Marcel to quickly zoom out a little bit, just so you can see one of the reasons probably why they climbed this tree, or at least why, if I was them, I'd climb this tree. I mean, have a look at this incredible view. So you're busy looking at the southeastern parts of andBeyond Phinda Private Game Reserve, and then right off into the distance you can see the sand dunes, which is the sand dunes just before the ocean. So these 2 lionesses, while enjoying such a beautiful view, probably climbed into this tree for quite a few reasons. One, they would have cooled down with this wind. It's the easiest way to get to the wind. The higher you go, the less obstructions there are. And 2, just to be able to keep a lookout in the area to see if there's any other prey or predators. This morning climbing the tree helped them. They climbed the tree, they managed to steal a kill away from a leopard, and then they finished feeding on that warthog, and they came straight back to the tree again. But lions don't tend to, or at least South African lions don't tend to sleep in trees for too long. Up in East Africa there are some prides there that will sleep in trees for the entire day, where our lions tend to just climb into the tree for a couple of minutes and then climb out and rather rest on the ground. I think it's more comfortable for them to rest up on the ground, and now they have completely passed out. It's so special. It's one of the things I love about the lions here on Phinda. The North Pride, so we have 3 prides on Phinda: Bayala Pride in the south, Mountain Pride, which is the pride that we're with at the moment, or at least half of the pride that we're with at the moment, and then the North Pride. The North Pride don't tend to climb trees too often, but Mountain Pride climbs trees a lot, and Bayala Pride climbs trees a lot. And what I find amazing is that neither of these 2 prides are related at all. So it's not like it's learned behavior that the pride split and they continued on doing that, because typically in South Africa you don't see lions in trees that often. but our lions seem to climb trees whenever it might be possible. And I'm not sure exactly why ours do it and the rest of the ones in South Africa don't. Yeah, their hearing is actually, you'd be surprised. So although their heads are down, if I was to, and they're sleeping at the moment, if I was to step out of the vehicle and just the sound of my feet on the ground and crackling on the sand or the grass, that would wake them up completely. So although they do go into a bit of a sleep, they still are aware and they are able to at least hear anything that's around them. Because if they had to shut off all their senses completely, and this would be when they're very vulnerable, and it could mean that another pride of lions or another male could come in and potentially injure or wound one of them, and B, they could miss the opportunity for a meal. Although on quite a few occasions I have seen lions sleeping like this, and a warthog busy minding its own business pretty much walked straight into lions and stopped like 2 meters ahead of them. I think fortunately he was downwind and wasn't making too much noise, and then stopped instead, and he was freezing, and then you could see him slowly start to backtrack, and he managed to get away, and only once he ran off at the last second did the lions wake up. So sometimes their hearing still catches them off guard from time to time.
We have got a little herd of impalas here that are being particularly difficult. They don't wish to be seen. Now, it's quite possibly a result of this wind. You go back a bit. They're all standing beautifully out in the clearing there, and then of course as soon as we pointed the camera at them, they all ran away. And that's because they understand that they're being observed, and they see us as a predator. I'm not sure that they see the vehicle necessarily as a predator. How's that, Craig? Sort of award-winning shot there. A much better shot now of them, and they feel much safer in the woodlands, but again they can tell that they're being watched, and so they've moved off. I seem to have lost my communications, I'm afraid. Yes, anyway, let's continue. See what else we can find over here. What we're going to do is just kind of wind our way along here. We did hear, like I said, I think it was probably that group, and I suspect that they were fighting with each other. But we'll just wind our way slowly through here and then head towards some big clearings on that end of this reserve and see what we can find.
So who have we got here? It's a gemsbok. South African viewers, gemsbok. Many other people know it as an Oryx. This is an old one. It's a bull. I'm just going on the thickness and the length of the horns. Not a particularly old one. The teeth are not in bad condition, but they are wearing down a little bit. But what I wanted to show you on this is something that many people don't realize about the horns or may not have seen before. And I'm going to bring it closer. You can have a good look. You got that, David?
Yeah.
Okay. What I want you to show you is look at how fibrous the horns actually are. Look at that. You know, you think of these horns as just solid, but they're not. And they're actually, these fibers are actually very, very tough. I can't even pull that off. I'm battling. And they've even got oil inside them. There you go. Look at that. So that's essentially the same as your fingernails, same substance, keratin, and we know other substances that are the same as this, or other animal products that are the same as this. But yeah, that's just out of interest, just to see that, and it's really nice. And if you compare it, so this is probably our hyena that's been biting this one over here, but if you compare it to the other one, There's one that hasn't been frayed off on the end yet. But it's just really nice to see that. So these horns as well contain a lot of oil inside them. And those of you who are actually interested in making walking sticks or anything, Rachel says I always show you the cool stuff. Thank you, Rachel. I don't know about that, but I really appreciate it. Thank you. Those of you interested in making walking sticks, you can actually, because of the oil in these, you can actually bend these. If you warm them up, you heat them, you can actually bend them into different shapes. It's quite an art, quite a process, but it is fun, and it's because of the flexible nature of the horns, the keratin in them, and the oils that the horns contain. But I just love these things. I mean, what a remarkable shape. And designed for fighting, eh? No frills, no funny edges on these things. Just, this is purely designed for fighting. That's why they're long and straight. We're going to put him down.
So we got us a pair, or more than a pair, of black cats at the moment. So these lions are doing well to keep their head out of the wind at the moment, because if they do lift their heads up, one of the problems that they're going to have is the strong wind into their ears, which is going to make it a little bit more tricky for them. And you will notice that the cubs, you might have just seen the cub pop its head up from time to time. They tend to be a little bit more nervous in this wind. They're not as used to all the sounds as what the adults are, and they're still learning which sounds are sounds that they need to worry about. Now, for those of you that watched this morning, you would have seen that there was a male lion busy trailing them, and who has done a very good job at keeping their distance. And the cub is looking in that direction at the moment, keeps popping his head up, looking that way. So I don't know if he or she, you can't tell from here, if he's expecting the male to come through. But we were all sitting here waiting and hoping that while these lionesses were in the tree, that the male would climb up. Something I've actually never seen on Phinda is a fully grown male lion up in the tree. I've only seen sub-adults, females and juveniles. So that would be a treat. Maybe a little bit later he'll come up and climb into the tree. That being said, I have seen males on Phinda climb into trees to steal leopard carcasses. In fact, yesterday morning that happened. So 2 days in a row we've had lions stealing kills from leopards. This morning a warthog from on the ground, and then yesterday I was out and we managed to see a male climb up a tree and steal an impala away. Alright, so we hear the lions are all out on the ground and just trying their best to stay out of the way. One of the youngsters is busy looking off to the left. We're hoping that the male that was with him this morning is going to come this way. Michelle, I guess it depends on the age of the lion. So youngsters like this can't go too long. These youngsters are around the age when they sort of weaned now. So at about 4 or 5 months is typically when cubs won't be weaned. So if they were to lose their mother now, within a week or so, they would be to the point where they would be so weak that they probably wouldn't be able to survive too much longer than a week and a half. An adult lioness like we see here, it depends on how much they ate, I guess. So if they have a very, very full belly, we've seen lions go, well, that we know of, up to about 2 weeks before without feeding. But ideally, they want to make 1 or 2 kills a week. You know, that they don't want to push it. And the problem is that the hungrier they get, the more desperate they get, the more energy they use to try and hunt. And when they become desperate, they don't take all their chances. Whereas a lion that has a full belly, when they're busy hunting, they can take their time. There's absolutely no rush. So I think what I want to do is I'm going to stick around here for a little bit. I want to see if these lions climb back up into the tree. And if it looks like they're just going to lie here, we might head around, see if we can find that male leopard that was here this morning. See if he's maybe gone back to that warthog carcass, because often after lions finish feeding, and they finished feeding about half an hour ago, the male leopard would come back to see if there's any bit of meat left.
I may have lost the elephants. Yes, you can lose elephants, but I do have this. It came from the elephants, an elephant's bottom. And this is an old one, so it's nice and dry, thank goodness. And I just want to show you, because it really emphasizes that elephants are not good digesters. Only 40% of what they need is digested, and yet they spend about 75% of their day feeding. So I'm going to break it open for you all. Oh my goodness. I'm going to try and break it open for you all. This is there we go, and I love the smell. I love the smell of ellie dung. And what you can see here is basically just dried grass and dried vegetation. And that's because 60% of what they did eat was not digested at all, and it's came back out. So it's very fibrous, this dung, and the older the elephant, the poorer the digestion. So it goes from being 40% to about 30, even 25%, and much, oh, don't blow away. Oh, half of my dung ball just blew away. But this is a habitat for all sorts of organisms. They can live in here, they can also feed on this, and I'm talking mostly insects. And the nutrients, there will be some nutrients in here, will actually get absorbed into the soil. And the whole sort of nutrient cycle will start once again. So elephant, their diet does change through the season, but they normally consume about 5% of their body weight, as do most mammals. So you can actually light this with a lighter. If you wanted to, I do not have a lighter, and it burns very, very slowly, and the scent can actually deter mosquitoes. So if you don't have any citronella and you're being bugged by mosquitoes, this is the answer. Put it outside your room, light it, and it will deter all the mosquitoes and, of course, smell absolutely wonderful. So I'm going to throw this back to where it belongs and continue bumbling.
And we've left the lions while they were all sleeping in the shade or in the sun in the riverbed. And on the way, we went along the banks of the riverbed, and we came across this flock of guinea fowl. Helmeted guinea fowl, and by the looks of it, most of them standing straight in the shade, and they putting their heads down every now and again, pecking at the ground. It looks like a bare patch. Oh, it's very difficult to see exactly what they're eating there, but it might be ants. Often with bare patches like this, you have ants or harvested termites nearby. That guinea fowl are pretty interesting birds to look at, and they can be quite comical as well. And we do often see quite large groups, clearings on the banks of the riverbed. You can see a few of them breaking off on the far end, and the rest of them still standing in the shade. One or two's grooming, the rest are all foraging. Now, where they are, they've got a good view of their surroundings. Oh, something's just spooked them. See, they're all heads up looking in the same direction. There's some arrow-marked babblers calling off to the left. Maybe that's something that's drawn their attention.
We have got here a little squirrel, a Smith's bush squirrel, aka a tree squirrel, the only species of squirrel that we get here. And this particular squirrel was eating a marula nut until about a minute ago, and then it dropped the marula nut on the floor. But what's quite amusing about this particular sighting is that the squirrel is perched on a very sharp piece of a marula tree, and every so often it looks like it's going to be blown off. Somewhere in this tree it will have a hole in which it sleeps. It may even have a couple of friends that live in the same tree. But right now I think it's just enjoying the sun. Vicky, they make a loud alarm calling chittering sound when they're in danger. It goes something like this. Isn't that a great representation? Let's go a little bit forward. Now, I think that they probably make alarm calls for different predators, and certainly some of the more experienced trackers I've worked with have been able to tell the difference between whether they're calling for a bird or for a leopard. I can't tell the difference. But often they'll alarm call and you'll think there must be a predator around, and then there isn't one. And then other times there is. So I think that this piece of tree here has got a hole in it, and that our squirrel pal has gone inside, perhaps to fetch another nut from the larder. Yes, you can see lots of potential squirrel homes in there. Let's quickly turn off that. There we are. I suspect probably in one of those holes. Nice and safe. I've always thought these look like very nice, safe places to live, until you think about them being the object of investigation for something like a snake. And the same thing goes for those sociable weavers' nests that you were looking at earlier with Dylan. You know, they're very safe and sound from just about everything except a marauding snake, in which case they become a kind of den of death, really, because there's nowhere to go. If a snake goes in there and there's something in there, there's no way to escape.
We found a giraffe. Now, it's very sad. Something awful has happened to its left eye, I'm afraid. Oh, I don't think it's got an eye. Oh, dear, dear. I'm so sad to see that. I can't even begin to speculate what happened here. But this male is thriving and clearly feeding, browsing on the delicious vegetation that's slightly lower. So this drive is going to continue on. So if any of you want to jump on board, go online, search WildEarth, and you will be able to continue on this drive. But thank you everyone for jumping on board. It's been a pleasure, and we shall see you tomorrow. Good afternoon, internet viewers. Welcome on board your live safari. If you haven't already been on board, my name is Lauren. I have Theo on camera, and this is a very upsetting scene. I did not realize until we came across this giraffe what is actually happening. Something awful has happened to its left eye. I don't think the eye is there, I'm afraid, which is very, very sad. Now, it's a hot day here today. I'm sure you, well, can only imagine. But it's hot for winter. It's 25 degrees Celsius and 81 degrees Fahrenheit. Oh, so sad, poor giraffe. We may try to go round a little bit to get another view. This is very sad. But please do talk to us. That's what this show is all about. Use the hashtag WildEarth on Twitter, or use @FC on Twitch or the YouTube chat stream. Send in your wonderful questions and your lovely comments on anything you would like to see across all 6 vehicles today. Zephyr, you're saying maybe a cyst burst. I actually don't know. I can't have a... I lost my words there because it's slightly disturbing. I haven't got the best of views where I am, but we may go around just to have a look and see what this boy looks like from the front. It's sad to see, I know, but hopefully his right eye... Oh dear, that does not look good. Possibly, Zephyr, possibly. I think that's what we're going to do. I don't like seeing animals injured, but sadly nature is nature, so I think we'll go around and possibly try and get a little bit of a nicer view of this boy and try and figure out what's wrong. Okay, that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to go around and hopefully this boy's right eye is absolutely fine.
This has got to be the coolest, no wait, one of the many cool animals on Tswalu, and I really wanted to show this. I just bumped him, well, I didn't touch him at all, I promise you, not with a car. Let me just get my words right. I saw him flying across the road and landed, so I stopped the car and I went and I picked him up. I'm not harming him at all, I'm actually holding him very gently, and there's a good chance he'll actually just get out of my fingers if I even release him fractionally. What happens here is he actually bends his legs right over, and you can see those incredible spikes along the tarsus over there, and he actually uses those. If anything grabs him, that's what he's trying to do now. If anything grabs him, he actually puts his legs right over. These joints will be almost at his head, yeah, and then he kicks up incredibly powerfully. And those spikes can actually injure a bird or something in its beak. So he's actually pretty tough. But the beautiful thing about this little guy, and he really is stunning, he is probably, in fact, without a question, the best weatherman on Tswalu. This little guy, when he starts calling, he makes this high-pitched, like buzzing sound. You know the rain's coming. He won't tell you how much rain, but neither will our weatherman. So, but if he starts calling, you know the rain is coming. There's no question about it. I'm actually still so surprised to see him out at this time of the year. So this is a really nice find, this one. And he's gorgeous, hey? Hey, little guy. I think we should let him go. What do you think? Yeah. Off you go. I mean, how beautiful is that, eh? And now he's like, alright, well, I didn't get eaten, so it can't be all that bad. Mrs. Lapwing says she loves his striped eyes. Those eyes are gorgeous, eh? So everyone's going to run out and get striped contact lenses now. Don't do it, folks. It's not worth it. You see, now he's like kind of settled down. There's a lot of insects that do that. That initially when they're caught, they try get away, they try struggle. And a very, very nice example of those, and some of them just like actually pretend they're dead. Like a lot of your weevils do that. If you bump a weevil, you know those are ones with a long nose like me. You know, if you bump them, they like fall onto their side, and then I kind of like fold their legs, tuck their legs in, and you actually think they're dead. But they're not. They're just shaming death, or thalatosis, whatever it's called. And but then you get others that struggle. But sometimes when they realize, well, there's actually nothing happening to them, they're like, okay, cool.
So you'll notice while we were discussing earlier about the wind and how they'll try their best to avoid the wind at the moment, you'll notice while they're all busy sleeping, have a look that the female on the right, she's dropped her ears down as much as she can without having to pin them back completely, because then she would struggle to hear. If you look at the cubs in the back, the ears are also slightly pinned down. And the reason why she's doing this is that if her ears were pricked up like they normally are, they would just act as a funnel for that wind to come straight into her ears, which would make it very difficult to listen. And also what's quite typical with wind is that then they won't face their ears directly into the wind when they do rest like this. Because just like having the ears up, if you had to face those ears straight into the wind, which is coming from behind her, that wind would also funnel straight into the ears. And just like what we've discussed on quite a few occasions with leopards, this lioness is also doing something which is quite smart, and the other lioness, which is a little bit in front of her to the left, also facing the exact same direction. So what's vitally important for them is to have that 360-degree awareness. So nothing's going to sneak up from behind. With a strong wind like this, there is no chance that anything can move behind her without her smelling it. They do have a very keen sense of smell, and so she will rather look and face downwind, because the problem is if with a strong wind blowing from behind her to our left, she'll actually battle to hear anything moving downwind from her. So it'd actually be very easy for something, whether it be the male or an antelope walking by or another predator sneaking on by, it would be very difficult for her to hear what's downwind from her. Karishma, so in my experience, I mean, lions will pretty much eat whatever they can. And I've even seen lions feed on carcasses which are almost a week old. But what is quite interesting is, and something we've noticed, at least here on Phinda with our lions, is that we have a very healthy population of bush pig. And on quite a few occasions, I've seen it once myself, and then one or two other guides have seen it as well, where they've seen lions actually killing a bush pig, feeding on it only a little bit, and then continuing on. So I'm not sure what it is about the meat of the bush pig, or why the lions in all those occasions didn't eat the entire bush pig. With leopards, I've seen it very similar with aardvark on two occasions, and I don't know if this because the skin of the aardvark and the meat of the aardvark is quite tough, but on both times I've seen leopards eating aardvark. It took them about 4 or 5 days to finish a carcass which they would easily have finished in a day or two had it been an impala or a warthog. But I don't think they're going to be too particular. Also, what you'll often find is that predators don't always tend to eat each other. That being said, lions will feed on another predator. But often you'll see a lion, if they fight with a leopard or they fight with a hyena and they kill them, they might only feed on some of the carcass and then leave the remains. Unfortunately, I had a sad experience once where we watched lions killing a wild dog, and they didn't feed on it at all. So I think often with predators, it's really killing them because it's eliminating the competition. And sometimes I like to think, or I don't like to think, but sometimes I think that maybe they leave the carcass behind as a signal to all the other predators, like, listen, I'm around, I'm the boss, and just know that if I come across you, I'm going to kill you. So yeah, I'm not sure exactly why they don't eat the entire carcass of a predator. But then on the other end of the scale, I've seen a leopard that was very, very skinny, and he managed to kill a female leopard, and he ate almost the entire carcass. So I guess sometimes they can afford to be picky, but for most parts I think they will eat whatever they can.
WildEarth relies on support from viewers like you to carry on broadcasting our daily live shows. A small donation goes a long way in helping us on our mission to connect the world with nature. Please visit our support page to see how you can help and become part of the WildEarth family.
Yes, very few animals can afford to be picky about what they eat, and I think that's probably best illustrated by so many of the carnivorous birds, which basically will eat anything that is smaller than them. I'm thinking of cuckoos and bush shrikes, normal shrikes, anything that can anything they can catch, they will eat. I suppose human beings have always been relatively picky. Even hunter-gatherers of old apparently used to have to forage for about 4 hours of the day, and the rest of the time they could spend sort of socializing or sitting or reading Shakespeare or that sort of thing. Obviously they didn't read a lot of Shakespeare back then, so they could be relatively picky about what they ate. Now, someone was trying to get hold of me on the radio to tell me they've seen something here at Simbambili, which is where we are, the reserve west of us. Unfortunately, that radio is not reaching my radio, and so kind of guessing as to where they are and hoping that there's something of enormous import going on here. There might not be, but there might be. Please remember to talk to us over the next 2 hours or so. You can do that using the hashtag WildEarth on the tweet. Alternatively, you can use the chat stream on YouTube or even on Twitch. I've never been on Twitch myself. You can also use the email address kidsquestions@wildearth.tv if you are a youngster and you wish to send us an email. Hello Spats, you're wondering about where bush pigs range in South Africa. Bush pigs you'll generally find in moister areas than this. You do get them here. I have not seen one on this reserve. I've seen them in the area once or twice, but generally where it's a little bit wetter. And so you'd find them, I suppose, further south and a little bit more towards the west. Forested areas, they like forest. They're not really a savanna species. So in the Mara, for example, we used to get them we'd find them all over forested areas up around the camp, and then once you got down into the valley, you didn't find them anymore.
I am so excited. I am over the moon. I can't wait for what is about to happen out here in the Kalahari. What we're looking at here, I know there's a bit of movement. It is a very, very windy afternoon. But what we're seeing here are the flower buds starting to form on the shepherd's trees. This is so important, and it is fantastic news to see these coming out now. I know we've touched briefly on the acacias that are just starting to push out little buds, but when I see this I get so excited, because what this means, and seeing so many flowers, is I think we could have a bumper crop of fruit on these shepherd's trees this year. This is fantastic news for any birds and any animals that are fruit eaters out in this environment, and we have lots of those. Even things like jackal and even leopards, believe it or not, will actually go for fruit if they need to. So this is really good news, and what I love about these trees is we've got a family of butterflies here called the whites, the perids, and there's at least 8 different species of this group of white butterflies that actually survive almost exclusively on these trees. And as these trees are starting to get greener now, the flowers are starting to come out, I think we're going to be in for a really, really good butterfly season here as well. And I've touched on it very, very briefly before. We're up to, I think, 66, 77 species of butterfly here. So what?
Mrs. Lapwing's asking if it's a succulent.
Mrs. Lapwing has just asked, is this a succulent? Very, very good question. It's not a succulent, but I can see exactly where you get that from. The leaves are actually very fleshy, but it isn't a succulent. But it has a phenomenal storage capacity underground over here. And there are actually some people that have said, and it's a very tenuous claim, I guess, that the roots of these shepherd's trees are amongst the deepest roots in the world. So I don't know, how accurate that data is, but nonetheless, these trees are remarkable. They're an incredibly important part of these environments for a whole host of different species. They are also evergreen, so even in the driest times, they provide exceptionally good forage for a lot of your browsing species. But this is going to be amazing. I'm so excited when this comes out, because then you're going to see all these cool little animals surrounding these bushes. And when I'm saying little animals, I'm talking about little, like lacewings, antlions, fruit flies even.
So as we continue along the Timbavati riverbed, we've come across this herd of elephants, and they're busy trying to have a drink. You can see some of them look like they are really enjoying the cool mud around the edge of that water hole. And a couple of them flat down on their side. So we used to have a large pan, but now coming towards the end of our dry season, most of the water in this area have been drying up. But a large herd of elephants like this has been probably spending most of their time along the banks of the river today feeding, often come down to these little pools where even though there might not be water, there might be mud. And little ones like that one over there is usually quite excited about this event. So have a look. It looks like it might be struggling to get up that steep hill there. The mother's nearby just in case she needs to give a helping hand or a helping trunk. See, it almost looks like she wants to nudge it up, struggling a bit herself. Look at the one at the back with her head straight up against the backside. And the others waiting in line. You can see some bushes rustling a little bit further up the bank. Might be one trying to drag it up by holding on to the bush. And there they go again. Now another young one, and the rest follow. Averil, do elephants have knees? Oh, do elephants ever sneeze? Sorry. They do. I'm not sure if you can call it a sneeze specifically, but I'm very sure they do. They do have a very sensitive organ that they use, which is the trunk, and they use that kind of like a hand to pick up things. They drink water through it. They often stick it deep into bushes to try and get to the sweet leaves. And when they do that, there's often dust and other particles that go up their nose. And being as sensitive as it is, I'm sure they sneeze to get rid of some of those unwanted dust particles. So have a look at that little one. It looks like it's trying to loosen up some mud there. Maybe it's trying to get to... Oop, looks like it was in a hole. These little ones specifically, they're usually the ones that struggle a little bit harder. When the large elephants don't find water at a pan like this, they might dig around it. And often if the water's deep down, they dig those holes so deep that when these little ones come around, they might even disappear inside it. Laura, how do elephants know where to dig? They have an incredibly strong sense of smell, and they have been known to smell water as far as 2 kilometers away accurately. So as they move along the Timbavati riverbed, they look for the areas where the sand is lower and closer towards the water table, and then from there they start digging. Now with this particular area, this used to be a seasonal pan or a seasonal watering hole, and there was some water that dammed up there. You can see there's a large rock face off to the back of that elephant there, and that rock face extends down in underneath the sand, so that helps to hold the water for a little bit longer. And when water in this area gets scarcer, and the elephants go near areas like that, which they would know. They know this area very well. The matriarch of this group, or the lead female elephant, she would go straight to those areas and take the rest of the herd there as well. And when they get there and there's no water, then they'll sniff around. So I can see still one more trying to get to some water there. But the rest of the herd looks like they might be going back up to the bank to go and feed.
Right, what we have here is a few Quelea. There's a big flock of them that you can see flying across the screen there. These are red-billed Quelea, probably the most abundant bird in the whole world, sometimes occurring in flocks of over 1 million birds. In the right season, following the rain, very strongly following the rains, you might find up to 300,000 of these birds in an average size flock, or more than 1 million in a large flock, which is pretty incredible. And in the breeding season, when all the chicks first hatch, you can find that a population in southern Africa alone might number more than 1.5 billion of these birds. They're absolutely amazing to watch, and they can be quite devastating to crop farmers. And their numbers are nowhere as high as they used to be, because they were persecuted. They were persecuted by farmers because of the fact that they could decimate whole crops. But isn't this amazing? They don't even look like birds when they're doing that. It looks like, I don't know, insects or something, scratching around in the seeds, because now the grasses are getting very, very dry. All the seeds are cracking open and falling to the ground, and these birds are collecting them. Of course, this big flocks like this, it's more like safety in numbers, because they're tiny birds, very, very small, only weighing a few grams. And so, without many of them together, they would easily be picked off by predators. Isn't that awesome? It's not often that you get to see them up so close and in such a big group. Of course, in the grand scheme of things, this is not a very big group, but it's one of the bigger groups that I've seen here on Pride Lands. Gert and I were commenting on how the numbers seem to be growing. Leave it wild. What predates on them? Mostly birds of prey, to be honest. Oh, look at that group flying off. See how they all fly together? Birds of a feather flock together, or so the saying goes. What feeds on them would mostly be birds of prey, especially falcons. We've seen quite a few falcons flying around at the moment. Lanner falcon we saw today, which is an amazing bird. Very fast, catches these things on the wing. And small predators like caracals and servals would probably hunt them as well. An African wildcat. Snakes, not at this time of year maybe, when there's not so much snake activity, but many small predators would catch them. But I think mostly birds of prey, and mostly caught on the wing. We saw the other day, we filmed and there goes the big flock flying off. Amazing. I love the sound when they fly off. It sounds like an engine starting almost. And see how they've all gotten a spook from something, and they're sitting up in the trees. They'll wait there for a few moments, and then once they relax, they'll all come back down and start feeding. Unless the feeding is over, there they all go. Wow, that's awesome. Unless the feeding is over, in which case this huge flock, I mean, there must be a few hundred individuals there at least. All right. I just want to show you quickly what they look like up close. So right now we saw them in the non-breeding season, and they just look drab like this. The male's got a red bill. That's where the name comes from. But in the breeding season, they're much more bright in color. You see the male gets this bright red head and black mask, and that's very, very easy and distinguishable. But awesome. Very, very cool to see. We don't often get to see so many. Nice.
So yeah, we have a rock. It's a bog standard stone. There's nothing funny about it, apart from being so cool because it's 1.6 billion years old. But apart from that, you got this like shiny greyish coloured patch on top. And I'm going to ask you a question. You can give me an answer very quickly. Okay. It smells like a rat. What do you think it could be? Any ideas? It smells like a rat. I'm not going to give you the answer, but what I will show you here, if anyone says, is it a rat, please leave the room immediately and go sit with you facing the wall. Okay, so we've got these other marks around here, quite large ones. David, you can see that there. I'll just trace the outline there, and little pads in the front. Ian says, a mole, not a mole, not a mole, not a mole. But I'm going to trace this next one as well. A vole? No, not a vole. Okay, let me give it another clue. It's a rodent. A rat is a rodent. So there we go. So a lot of people are sitting in the corner. Good for you. Well done. Okay, I'm going to give you a clue. It's black and white. Now that clue is in black and white. You can do it. Take your time. You can phone a friend. You can ask the audience. Or you can go 50-50. No pressure. So this is scent marking on top here. So you would imagine it would be a fairly large rodent, because I mean if you think of a normal little like ratty mousy kind of thing would be down here, so why would you jump up onto a rock? So it's a fairly large rodent that we get here. Should I just tell you what it is? Because this is... Susie! Susie has hit the jackpot. Susie says a porcupine. Well done, that's exactly what it is. So these weird little tracks that I was kind of like marking out over here, it's a porcupine that's come all the way from this direction over here through there, scent marked on top here. They don't have to climb up, because obviously, I mean, they stand about this big. So they just literally walk over here and they actually urinate on exposed things, typically stones and little mounds of harder sand in it. But this is very, very diagnostic of porcupines, and it's got that classic rat or rodent smell. And I would still strongly recommend that for any of our young viewers that are watching, please ask your parents to get you rats for Christmas, because they are just the best pets, and they're very clever and they're very cute and very cuddly. But so we've got something else special that I'm trying to find this afternoon. It's a really cool animal. We've looked for it before. We haven't had a huge amount. In fact, we haven't had any success. But stick with us in the next segment and we'll see what we get.
I hope Dylan will find what he's looking for. Now, the herd of elephants we had earlier has gone up the bank and they've disappeared. And now we still have this mother and her young calf, and it looks like there's another large female that's still around the watering hole. That little one, the mother's been waiting patiently for the little one to move around, and it's basically just been playing in the mud. It had a quick drink from the mother just now, but it looks like it's having a lot of fun in that cool mud. I'm not too sure what the other one is doing. I haven't really had a good look at her head, and it looks like she's been very, very busy with her head down right up against that rock face. Now, my guess would be that she's looking for scratching something off. Blaine, to answer your question, when do babies leave their mothers? That is a really good question. A young female, which I saw earlier that young calf is, might stay with her mother all her life, and she might not move at all. It is amazing to think that such a small elephant at this point, she doesn't realize it, but her whole life will be within the herd, and she'll learn from her mother and continue along. The young males, once they reach puberty, which can be anything from about 14 to 16 or 17 years, then usually they start to become a little bit more independent, and they move. At the beginning they'll start moving away from the herd, and eventually they'll have to move off and start moving with other large males that's been moving on their own. The rest of the herd sometimes also prefer not to have them around, since they can be a little bit irritating, especially with young babies around, and when they start playing and they start pushing each other around. Young males can even reach a point where they might pose a danger to the young babies. it looks like that young one's back at the mud. You can see it slipping every now and again. Oh, going a little bit quicker to catch up. I always find it interesting when we look at the young ones versus the larger ones. You can see the big animals with their slow movements, and then those little ones moving very, very quickly to keep up with the larger ones. It looks like it's in quite a playful mood. And I think now it's caught up with the mother again. And it looks like it's time for them to head up the bank as well to join up with the rest of the herd. Ooh, look at those two. And I don't actually know what the purpose of an elephant's tail is specifically, or if there is a specific purpose to the tail. I do know that it is an extension of the spine, and it's got quite long hair at the tuft or right at the tip of the tail. Now, it does serve a useful function to get rid of flies. You can imagine something as large as an elephant moving around in the mud. It can have quite an odor to it and attract a lot of insects, and it helps to get rid of them, especially around the backside, the areas it's difficult to reach. It also helps with balance, I would guess. If we have a look at this one, if he's going up the bank, like let's have a look at the tail. Often they might extend it, keep it straight. Let's have a look, you see it's a little bit straight. And up he goes. So it might serve a purpose within their balance as well, since they are not really built for climbing very steep walls, although we've seen this herd do very well. It might help them with that as well. And now they've disappeared up the bank as well. And looks like there's two dark-capped bulbuls, and underneath them I know that other elephant is still looking for something there. This afternoon's gonna sit here. Oh no, it's also looks like it might be heading up there.
We have got some wildebeest and some impala and a lovely view out west to the hills, the foothills of the great Drakensberg Mountains, which are in fact hidden in the mist. Well, dust. Not sure what to call it. But there it is. A very pretty scene, a very peaceful scene playing out as the sun slowly turns the tips of the grass gold. Or flax, I suppose, probably. Better colour. You can just see those foothills there. Down towards Ulusaba area, the western boundary of the Sabi sands. Very quiet. No tracks of any predators. But a very pleasant time we're having here on Simbambili. Hello, Linda. You say it's very pretty. Well, yes, it is. It is indeed very pretty. And you can just feel the changing of the seasons. And as I say at this time of the year, every year, winter ends in the space of about 6 hours. And it'll be cold one morning. You'll have a normal kind of winter's afternoon. And sometime during that night you wake up, it's around about this time of the year actually, you wake up the next morning and it's just not cold anymore. And then it's very hot in the middle of the day. and we're approaching that time now. The other special thing about this time of the year is the knobthorn flowers have started. It feels quite early. I don't think it is. Not all of them are in flower, but the knobthorns are now flowering. And the smell is just indescribably lovely. Soft honey permeates the air. And then, in addition to this great plethora of Wildebeest and Impala, we have a zebra staring at us. You see it there. There we are. Gemma, the thing that I'm most looking forward to with spring coming, it's not really, we don't really have a spring. It just kind of turns into summer. I think it must be the smells, the different smells, and just the change of the season, you know. Up until November, it's going to get drier and drier and drier, and then hopefully we'll get some rain in November. And so it can be a relatively harsh time of the year, scenically, in this part of the world. And so I guess over the next few months, the thing I'd be looking forward to most is the action that will take place around the waterholes. The water's going to become a real kind of premium resource as the smaller waterholes dry out and the heat builds. The wind is swinging round now, it's not coming from the northwest anymore. So I wonder if we don't have a front coming in. Hello, Sugar Bits. You want to know where the name zebra comes from? I'm unable to tell you, but I do have an app that will tell me. If you give me 1 second, I'll have a look. I'll have a look-see. I've no doubt there are any number of people Googling as fast as they can. The name zebra is derived from the Italian or Portuguese form of the name given to the species in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. That's interesting. It doesn't say what that name is. So I'm assuming in a local language in the DRC, there is a word that resembles the word zebra, and the word that we use is derived from the Italian Portuguese form of that particular word. There you go. I had no idea. Thank you very much for that question. And this is the plains zebra. We used to call it a Birchall zebra, but it is now a distinct species from the East African plains zebra. But of course that'll probably change tomorrow. Yes, guide monkey, they are definitely the most stylish animals out here. Short of the camera operator on the back of this vehicle, of course, Craig is also very stylish. He found a remarkable hat. It looks like a sort of fireman's helmet. And he sat on his sunglasses 4 or 5 times, which makes him look like he's just taken a pummel to the face. He's very stylish out here. But other than him, I agree with you entirely that these zebra are the most stylish animals out here. Where is your hat, Craig? I would like you to give it to me. I think I would like to show it to everybody because it really is, it is a piece of equipment that really deserves to be on camera. Oh, he's wearing it. Here we go. I'll now have to take, well no I won't, I'll just put it over the top. Look at this incredible piece of equipment. Isn't it magnificent? I particularly like this. Craig says this is how he gets the ladies. Yes. Unsurprisingly, Craig found this particular hat on one of our vehicles. We don't know where it came from, and I said to him I didn't think that anybody would fight him for ownership of it. It's a gorgeous, gorgeous piece of equipment. Oh, it's even got, wait, it's got a flap. It gets better, wait. Neva, you say this is pretty ugly. This is quite possibly the most ugly hat I've ever seen. Look at this flap that it's got up there. Just in case you don't want to have the full hat up, you can wear it like this, which of course makes it look much less ridiculous than when you wear it like that. I imagine this is the kind of hat my mother might wear when she's in the garden digging. Many of you saying it suits me. Thank you. Craig, you may have it back. I mean, much as I'd like to keep it. But Tommy, you say that it's he's making you feel like the Handmaid's Tale. Yes, it does have that sort of vibe to it. It's even got an adjustable strap. The person who designed this was obviously somebody who felt it was necessary to stay hidden from the sun, but had absolutely no sense of style whatsoever. That's also a real classy piece of decoration. Magnificent. Let's go somewhere where there's a beautiful animal instead.
Talking about a crafty piece of decoration, look at that beautiful coat. We were lucky enough to, on our way to the watering hole that we were heading to, we've just spotted this young female leopard. Now she looks like she's trying to hide from us, and I'm not sure exactly what she was doing, but unfortunately she's disappeared now. There she goes. Yeah, she blends in perfectly within this tall grass at the moment. And I think we surprised her just as we were about to drive, or just as she was about to cross the road. She probably heard us coming and ducked down besides a small shrub. Now, it's very difficult to say. We only had a brief glimpse of her, but I do suspect that this is the young female, and that is a cub of one of the females that we see within this area, the Ngala female. Now, the direction that she's moving is towards a very dense, small, dry riverbed. But how lucky were we to spot that? And often that's the only way people get to see a leopard when they come here. A brief glimpse as they cross the road and then disappear into the thick bush. Alright, I think let's continue. We're going to see if we might get another glimpse of her. If not, we're going to continue on towards the large watering hole in this part of the reserve. Yeah, it's amazing how well they disappear. I don't think we will get another view of that leopard, unfortunately. It's also no use for us to keep following her. It's a very dense area. If we keep moving in that part, I'm pretty sure she's going to continue moving, and she might even run away. And we really don't want to push her or put any pressure on her. Anna, what is the best time to go on a game drive? Personally, I don't really have a preference between morning and afternoon. I do like to see animals after dark, and the behaviors, especially the nocturnal predators that we don't get to see during the daytime. But I would say in the morning it's all that excitement of finding something new that you don't know where they've been moving in the evening, you don't know what they've been up to in the evening, and to find the tracks, track animals down and see what they're doing, that for me is also a great part of game drive. In terms of a season, I would say in South Africa it would more than likely be the winter time. For me personally, I think we get to see a lot of interaction, especially around watering holes, and animals' movements are a little bit more predictable, so your chances of seeing the tougher to find animals. Oh, some big vultures up ahead. Oh, I think it's a vulture. But I would say in terms of game viewing, it would probably be in the dry season, the winter time. And I'm going to push a little bit forward. Looks like we've got a lappet-faced vulture as well as a white-backed vulture, but I'm going to have to make sure. Just look at the size difference between those two. Alright, James Richard, thank you so much. I thought it might be Ngala female's daughter that we just saw. And now we've got these two vultures here. Now, one might ask yourself, why would there be vultures in this area? That is a big lappet-faced vulture on the left-hand side, and then on the right-hand side we see the white-backed vulture. They're sitting on top of a dead tree, and personally I think these two are just roosting. We're not far from that watering hole at the moment where we were moving towards, and I think that they might have gone down there to bathe themselves a little bit earlier during the heat of the day. And now that we are here on the banks of the small dry riverbed that we just crossed, the taller trees nearby is more than likely where these vultures have their nests and their roosts. I don't think that there is something nearby, like a carcass or anything that might have died, but you never know for sure. So I think we're going to continue along, myself and Owen, and go check that watering hole.
So what I'm trying to find now is an art wolf. You know, I've missed one sighting in this area, but there's been a number of other sightings in this area over the past week and a half. So I'm really hoping. The temperature is like dropping so quickly now, and where we are now, we're probably sitting at about 8 degrees, 9 degrees, somewhere around there, but the wind is coming across us from right to left, so I'm really hoping that we actually find something. The temperature for art wolf is really optimal now in terms of the termites that they're feeding on. There was an interesting thing, and we're wondering about how many termites. Someone asked how many termites a aardvark eats, and we mentioned that was kind of in the range of about 50,000 a night, give or take. But a week prior to that, someone had asked how many termites does a aardwolf eat, and it turns out the aardwolf is eating anything between 200,000 and 300 plus thousand per night. So what would account for such a massive difference? An aardwolf is a tiny animal, a very, very light, fine-bodied animal, compared to this like bulky, chunky beast of an aardvark. But the discrepancy in those numbers just doesn't add up. The one that's smaller and finer is eating so much more per night than the one that is so bulky is eating a lot less. And the secret actually lies in the kind of termite that they're eating. These aardvark are going for what we call northern harvester termites. And these are big bulky termites, but they often live deep, so the aardvark's going to dig for them, but they're highly nutritious, a lot of moisture, whereas the ones that the aardwolf are eating, these little snouted termites, tiny, tiny little things, not a lot of nutrients, not a lot of water, and therefore they have to be eating a whole lot more of them to get enough in. So cool, so interesting. Sharanya is asking, is an aardwolf different to an aardvark? Absolutely. An aardvark, and I will show you when we stop just now, I'll show you pictures. Where's my notepad? I will show you pictures just now. But an aardvark is a big, literally pig-like animal. It's got these long ears, very sparsely hairy, and it's got a big elongated nose, huge front feet. Its front feet are literally, in fact, they look just like my hand. No, but they're literally, their front feet are the size of my hand for digging. They've got very, very good digging skills, and they can get to 40, 50, 60 kilograms in exceptional cases. That would be the upper end. But whereas aardwolf, they almost look like small hyena. Very, very hairy things, lovely stripes on the body, on the legs, little beautiful little black muzzle, pointy ears. And they kind of like, imagine like a small dog size, like a Jack Russell kind of weight. That's the kind of range that you're looking at there. So two markedly different animals, but both termite eating creatures. But there's not much competition between them. Like I say, they're just going for two very, very different species of termites. Oh man, I get so excited being out here. You never know what you're going to find, and I've just got a good feeling about this afternoon. For a whole pile of reasons, but yeah, I think we are, I'm hoping for aardwolf for you. It's going to be really cool if we can get one. B. Cantrell, I know where you live. No, B. Cantrell has asked, can I please rather find an aardwolf after I found a black-footed cat? Yes, it could happen, but it's extremely unlikely to happen. And one of the key things there is, so this little cat that B. Cantrell's talking about, a black-footed cat, some people know it as a small spotted cat. That's not really the accepted term now, just because there's so many small spotted cats in the world. But this little cat is only about that big, an adult, and he stands about that high. Super hardcore predators. But they are almost exclusively nocturnal. I have never in my entire career seen one active in the day. I'm not saying you won't see them in the day, but it's extremely unlikely, whereas aardwolf on the other hand, and that just doesn't fit in with our current drive times. So to see one of those would be like seeing a dragon, a real live dragon with pink spots and a green tail out here. But you know, the aardwolf actually changes its behavior, its feeding pattern completely based on the termites, which means it takes it from a strictly nocturnal animal in the summer months, the hot summer months, to becoming actually quite a diurnal or diurnally active species in the winter months like now. So yeah, if we see a black-footed cat, I'm there like a bear. Then we will, or if I know we've got a chance of getting one, yes. But let's see. I'll settle for an aardwolf.
Yeah, a black-footed cat and an aardwolf would be amazing to see, Dylan. Just as we came across this watering hole now, we found a bateleur busy drinking on the edge of the water. But unfortunately, those two hippos over there, they put their heads up. The one gave a snort and chased the bird off. And we thought, well, we might as well have a look at these two to see what they're up to. And it looks like they've started to become a little bit more active. Earlier today we came past this area and we didn't see any movement of them. You can see every now and again one of them is just popping up their heads. Just to scan around the edges of the water to see if there's anything else coming down to have a drink. Oh, there's 3. It's always quite difficult. I often get the question, how long does a hippo keep its breath for? Now, I guess it depends on the hippo itself, and they have been known to push the limits, but generally speaking it's probably between 4 to 6 minutes. And because of that very reason, we often find it quite difficult to know exactly how many hippos we are looking at. And for instance, now we don't see any. What a beautiful afternoon at this watering hole though. Dead quiet, a little breeze it's blowing. We can only hear some birds calling. Sharanya, if the water gets too low for hippos, then they would move off. And this time of the year, normally this watering hole would have dried out already, and then there'd be no hippos here. The hippos time it very well, and then during the night time or on cooler days, they might decide to take the time to move from this one to another more substantial body of water. In this case we had a pretty good rain season, and as you can see there's still quite a lot of water left, and that's why these hippos are still here. The first ones that I've noticed that come back after the first rains, when the water starts to fill up again, is usually a male hippo. It might be the same male hippo that was here and the dominant male in the earlier or in the previous season, and occasionally it's other ones. What we also notice is before it gets completely dry, hippos from other areas might make their way into these watering holes, and then often we have a little bit of an issue between the dominant male and the new males that come in. And occasionally he'll even allow those new males to stay within the watering hole, as long as they keep away from the females and as long as they spend their time on their own in the corners or away from the rest of them. You can hear some birds making a noise in the distance, probably spooked by something. Now, every now and again when that happens, can't help but wonder whether there's something that might be making its way down here. Maybe even elephants or a lone buffalo bull, or as we'd all hope, maybe a lone predator. Maybe even the 3 lions that is missing from the Birmingham Pride that we didn't see. Erok, I have never seen hippos eat water plants myself, so I do not know if they depend on the area that they found in. I do know that hippos in areas with more like areas like the Okavango Delta or so, where you don't, or where you have seasonal riverbeds filling up with water and you have a lot of grass in them, occasionally the hippos will feed along the banks. Along big rivers, I've often noticed that you don't see the hippos moving too far during the day, but they'll move up on the bank and they'll feed on the grasses along the banks. The actual water plants itself, I'm not too sure. I'm going to have to go find out for you and see what I can find. But if it's not necessary for a hippo to move away from the water in a large distance, then it might feed up on the banks. You can see the ears up of that one hippo. It looks like they're coming up every now and again just to check out the area. They know this is the time that the other animals will come down to come and have a drink. And they're curious, I'm sure. It's always funny to see them when they disappear under the water, and the next thing they pop up. Ooh, it looks like all three of them are right next to each other. Sometimes it's difficult to follow them, especially when the wind's blowing like that. If it's very calm water, you can actually see they leave like a little bit of a trail in the water as they move. Now I know specifically in this watering hole there's no grass, no plants, nothing growing at the bottom of this watering hole. This is strictly mud down here. So I know for a fact in this particular one they do not eat any water plants because there is none. So they basically rest up during the heat of the day and they start to get active late afternoon. And I'm sure when the sun's down and it's dark, they'll move out and they'll follow then they'll probably move towards the nearest small dry riverbed. Oh, it's dead quiet here. I think we'll leave these hippos and continue to, we might start making our way back towards those lions that we had earlier.
Alright, well, we are also continuing onwards. We're actually moving into the area where we left the lions this morning. They moved onto a bit of a rocky outcrop that was very difficult to follow onto. And we've seen tracks around that area, but it doesn't look like they've left the area. And as you see, the golden sun, the lights coming across now, it's getting much, much cooler. I suspect that these lions will get active soon. So we're just going to head there to try and see if we can spot them, which would be fantastic. It's been a while since we had a pride that stayed more than one full day, or at least that we know of, because we don't really use the central areas too much because it's very dry there and there's not much water, and so most of the animal activity has been close to our dams. But it will be very nice if these lions do stick around. They looked full, so I don't think they're going to hunt actively tonight, but with the wind that's going to pick up at about 11 o'clock and continuing all the way through the night until tomorrow, you could find that there will be excellent hunting opportunities, and so these lions could use that time, even if they're not that hungry. If the opportunities are good, you saw how they were looking at those buffaloes earlier. Imagine if those buffaloes had no sense of smell or hearing or even sight if it's nighttime. These lions could take advantage of that. Maybe 3 adult lionesses could potentially, unlikely, but potentially take on a buffalo. You can see there's a couple of francolin just on the road up ahead here, feeding at the road's edge. Jenna, I hope that we find the lions as well. I really hope that they come out and play for us. You know, that would be great to see them. Just like these francolin are also coming out now. Now that it's getting cooler, they're able to be active. These are crested francolin. I don't want to disturb them. They're busy feeding across the road. Very cute little birds. My favorite of all the francolin and spur fowls. They have that little tail that cocks up every now and again, just like a bantam. Just like the Quelea is also feeding mostly on seeds. At this time of year, there's not too many insects around, but they can also eat insects and scratch up little bulbs and tubers also. But yeah, as it cools down like this, we can really feel this cool breeze starting to just waft across us. And it could be that these lions will get active at any time. So let's keep moving. Let's not dally too much. It's a group of lionesses, so they're not often calling too much. It's mostly the males that do those loud vocalizations, but we have heard these lions calling in response to others calling in the area. So if we get close enough and we sit quietly, we might get to hear them calling. Ian has asked a very good question. How many lion prides exist at Pride Lands or in the surrounding area? We don't know, and there's actually a very interesting census that's about to take place. It's called a call-up census for predators, where they actually play the distressed calls or sounds of animals like buffaloes, and they get to see what predators come into the area, and that'll be an excellent way to find out how many prides are around. I was actually speaking to a guide friend of mine, and she mentioned that this particular 5 lionesses that we've seen might well be known as the Baluli Southern Pride, but I'm not sure. I can't confirm that. I don't know if any of you viewers at home have maybe followed some of the lions in this area of the Greater Kruger National Park around Baluli, and maybe you know of the Baluli Southern Pride. It would be interesting to know if you recognize any of those lions. If you've taken any screenshots, that would really help us as well. As you know, we can't often take photos when we're trying to follow the lions through these kind of areas, but with the camera you can take really great screenshots. But yeah, at least this one big pride and at least 2 groups of males move through this area. And I'm not sure about any other lions that have been seen. Gerard, you didn't see any other groups, so this is the main group. So there's Quelea Game Reserve next to us as well, also joined, as well as Tjani and Baluli next to us. So the lions move in and out of these areas. So hopefully in the next 2 weeks, when they do this predator census, we'll have a much better idea of what predators and how many prides are around here. So we're coming close to a place called Leo Pan, or Lion Pan, which is actually just at the base of Lion Koppie, where we last saw those lions. Yeah, it's going to be really cool. I mean, the lion census is something I've never been a part of before. I've done predator call-ups before, but mostly with vets to do collaring. So this is a new thing for me, just to literally sit, and it takes hours sometimes, just to sit somewhere and call up and just see how many animals come in. I wish I could be part of it. Maybe I will get to be at some point if they do another one, but this one is happening very soon. But here we are at Lion Pan. I'm just going to pull into Lion Pan here, because there's nice golden light. So this is normally a water hole with lots of reeds and grasses around. As you can see in front, it's quite an open area, and animals would have wallowed here, and the lions probably use this as one of their main routes when they walk through the area, because they would normally have a drink here, and there might be other animals that would be drinking. So they're just sticking to their normal territorial routes. Even though there's no water here now, they'll still pass by here, maybe scent marking on some trees. Remember, lionesses are territorial, not just the males. They'll also scent mark to control a territory. It's very quiet at the moment though. Just Cape turtle doves calling, a few crickets and other things. So yeah, I think we're just going to sit tight here, Gert and I, for the next half an hour or so and see what else turns up.
We are looking at a Shotia brachypetala. And this particular tree is quite sad in South Africa at the moment, because of course, Craig, as you will know, during lockdown we have been unable to buy our favourite tipples, have we? And because we have been unable to buy our tipples, we have been... Oh, I must apologise, it's not a Shotia tree at all. It's a Bohemia tree. It's a brown ivory. That is a little embarrassing. Anyway, what I was going to tell you is that the Scotia tree, the Shotia, you can use for hangovers, of course, the bark. That's the thing that it's well known for. And, well, we can't get any we can't get any liquor in this country, and so Scotia brachypatelas have been left unscathed for the last however many months. I'm sure they're quite pleased. This particular tree I don't know of any medicinal uses for. It's a very round brown ivory. Anyway, they always grow on termite, they don't always, but they often grow on termite mounds. We've gone to the far end of Simbambili. We have not come up with anything, and so we're heading back towards Djuma now for the final bits of the drive, hoping to point our camera at a predator. Many of you don't know what a tipple is. A tipple, everyone, is a drink. Your tipple is your sort of favourite drink. So your evening tipple, in my case, might be a fine scotch, or my lunchtime tipple, on holiday only obviously, might be a gin and tonic. That's what a tipple is. A drink. Yes, Jacqueline, the tree is growing from the termite mound. Absolutely. I think it's because I'm imagining that the seeds get pooped into the middle of the termite mound by something like a mongoose. That's probably the most likely reason, but normally with those ones, the mound doesn't grow around the tree grows out of the mound. So you can see the whole kind of arrangement over there. You do get sometimes a situation where a mound forms at the base of a tree. It's often around terminalia or silver cluster leaf trees, but these ones seem to grow out of the top of the mound. And I can only think that they've got there either through a bird dropping, or maybe I don't know what would, because a mongoose wouldn't eat the seeds or the fruits. So maybe something like a hornbill would have eaten the fruits. They're actually quite nice fruits, and then gone to sit on the termite mound and waited for some termites to eat, and took a poop while it was sitting there, and the seeds somehow got into the mound that way. But you just often find them growing on termite mounds. And as far as I'm aware, and logically this makes sense to me, that mound came before the tree did. It's quite pretty, isn't it? Should have stopped with the sun behind it, then it would have been even prettier. Sharon, it is rather just gorgeous, isn't it? Bohemia discolour, and the sun about to go down in the far west. Well, that's nice, Craig. Well done. Craig creating some art for you there. Not a great deal to listen to this evening, I'm afraid, because of the wind. Very, very peaceful indeed. The only natural sound I can hear other than the wind is the pecking of woodpecker on some wood. Peckety peck peck. It's going. Alright. On we go. Peckety peck peck peck. Craig said he'd like to see a cheetah hunting across these plains. I said I'd see for just a cheetah. It's a little starling and a hornbill. The Birchall starling, looking off to the west. Its friend the hornbill doing the same thing. Nice peaceful evening for the bird. I'm sure it is being very vigilant, however, because there are a lot of little predators and things that would eat a bird like this, including predatory birds. I'm assuming that it's going to find itself a slightly more comfortable perch to snooze on. High action in the background there. Hornbill chasing another starling. Phew, look at that, Craig. My heart nearly leapt out of my mouth. HB, yes, that starling does look purplish because the starling is sort of purplish. It doesn't have actual purple pigment. It's got a bit of blue pigment in it, and it's got a lot of melanin in it as well, and that melanin is arranged in such a way that when the light reflects off it, and depending on which angle the light hits, it'll either look blue, greenish or purplish. And so very little of what you're looking at, oh, very nice, there's a projectile poop. Very little of what you're looking at there, colour-wise, is in fact a pigment. Its iridescence is the property that is given to the, or is given. Iridescence is the property that these feathers have. That gives it, or that gives them that remarkable array of colours, depending on which angle the light hits. It's quite a complicated arrangement of air pockets and melanin crystals and other things like that. Oh, Burchell, Vic, was a well-known British naturalist, and Burchell was the first chap to send a zebra to the British Museum. They used to do what they call collect animals out here, which meant they trapped, shot them, stuffed them, and then sent them up to a museum. And Burchell has lots of animals named after him, and a lot of these guys were wiped out by animals eventually. I forget exactly what end Burchell. I think Wahlberg met his end on the tusks of an elephant in Bango. He was a Swedish naturalist. With Burchell, I'm not sure what happened to him. We'll just have a quick look at these beautiful Wildebeest. Same ones we saw, but this time they are having the golden light of the setting sun upon their coats. A bit of Impala boxing going on behind us. Oh, there we are. Now the second rut should be next month. Look at these idiots. What a bunch of morons. Thoroughly entertaining, but really, the sight of posturing males of any kind of species is normally a sight that fills any other male with relative shame. Yes, so they do sound like pigs, they also sound a little bit like predators. And so if you don't know what the sound is, then you can sometimes be a little nervous. I remember when I was doing my unarmed walking, which was what we all had to do as trainee rangers. We had to walk through the area. I did mine at Ngala, and I remember that I was totally clueless, and when I first heard that going on, I was convinced I was about to be savaged by a predator. Alright, so here's just while you're looking at these things. Burchell travelled to South Africa through 1815, collecting more than 50,000 specimens. 50,000 specimens. Many of those, of course, were insects. Oh, he didn't meet his end on the tusks of an elephant or the horn of a rhino or buffalo. He in fact hanged himself in an outhouse in his garden after a non-fatal suicide attempt by shooting. That is a deeply tragic end, and not really amusing at all, save for the fact that it happened a very long time ago, and so I don't think anyone's very sad about it anymore. Gosh, what a really horrid way to end such a successful career. That's in Fulham in England. Anyway, he was obviously quite brilliant as a naturalist. He also made trips to Brazil, other parts of South America, where he did a lot of collecting and discovering or cataloguing of the natural world. Phew. I think I'd have taken the fate of old Wahlberg rather than the fate of Burchell. Let me move forward slightly and we can have a quick look at the sun going down. We'll do our traditional silent thing. I had a very, very funny email. I get these emails every so often from somebody who shall remain nameless but may well be watching. Oh, there's an elephant way across there. It's probably behind a tree for you, Craig. And this email lamented the fact that we as guides insist on showing the sunset and the sunrise every single day, as if we don't realize the sun goes up and down in every single part of the world to which we broadcast. And we talk about it in tones that imply there's something extraordinary about the sun coming up and going down each day. It was a very funny email. I took it as a sort of sarcastic dig. I wasn't insulted by it at all, and I still like to watch the sun going up and down every day. There we are. Terry, you should see Springbok with Tswalu. You don't see them here because they don't occur here. They occur only in areas where the rainfall is roughly lower than 350 or 300 millimeters a year. So they are desert and semi-desert animals. So the Kalahari is a good place for them to be. They don't occur in the Kruger Park at all. So although this is a semi-arid savanna area, you won't find any Springbok here. Their ecological niche is filled almost entirely by Impala, and they replace each other. If you look at a distribution map of Impala and Springbok in southern Africa, you'll find that there's almost no overlap whatsoever. It's so orange like that, almost early before it's gone down because of the wind we've had today. So there's a huge amount of dust and smoke in the atmosphere. There's our elephant, Craig. He's coming towards us now. He's still about 8 miles away.
so we were lucky enough to just come across this leopard that Adam and Thomas has found. Now, I haven't had a chance to have a good look at him, and he was actually busy stalking some elephants when we found him. And as you can see, he's just moving off into the long grass. There we go. Looks like there's a termite mound that he might head up upon. Now, from what I could briefly see, if I'm not mistaken, it might be the Makoti male. Okay, and he's disappeared. I think let's head towards him and see if we can get a better view. Now, we're right on the bank of a dry riverbed, and I'm pretty sure he spent a large part of his day within the shade of the trees on the bank. And now, as it's cooled down, he started moving. And there we go. Oh, it certainly looks like him. And have a look at that. He's sniffing a tree. Might be a marking bush of another leopard. And by the looks of it, this one is definitely moving around like he is the only male within this area. Now, if you have a look, you see the tail tips up, the white showing. It's low down. Just in case he spots something, he'll put that tail down. And between these long grasses, he's perfectly camouflaged to this point. Now, the interesting thing is the area where he's moving at the moment is actually the area where we've been seeing the Tsitsalala leap. So the young male and the young female, we suspect them to be moving somewhere within this area as well. And we did not actually expect to find this guy here. By the looks of it, the way he's moving, the way he's scanning around, I'm sure he's looking for something to hunt at this stage. You can see every now and again he stops and he's just looking down at the ground and sniffing patches, maybe looking into a hole of an old termite mound. And now we've lost him again. Oh no, there he is. He looks like he's casually heading in the direction of the watering hole. I think we're gonna continue and see if we can get a little bit of a better view of him.
We found. Stood and waited, and we didn't hear anything, and we decided let's go and drive a little bit. We just found one track of a lioness, and we decided to go and investigate. I went off on foot and just walked a short distance, and then one of these lionesses popped their head up, and then we found them, still very, very relaxed with their full bellies, haven't moved far. It's interesting. This lioness still looks like she's got pink on her face. I wonder why she hasn't groomed properly yet and been cleaned. See that just by the whiskers. I don't know if it's just my imagination, but it looks kind of pink to me. Maybe I'm just imagining things. Maybe I want it to be pink. I don't know. Is she beautiful? She's going to go and lie down with her sister. It does look pink, doesn't it? Yeah. I don't know why she hasn't been grooming herself. Oh, that's hard work being a lion. You've sat here the whole day. Digest was probably a delicious meal of Impala. I don't think it was anything much bigger. We've got one very full lioness and then All the rest look, different stages of half full. I suspect it wasn't a very big animal, maybe an impala or a young kudu. But it's nice to see all these lions being so relaxed. I mean, we're not very far away from them, and I saw them on foot very close, and they didn't even care. I mean, it's certainly the bigger and stronger the pride, the better have big this is. But there's plenty of food around. There's a few water holes, there's lots of impala, there's some zebra and kudus around. You can see there's a lot of impalas, so I don't suppose this lion pride would need to have too big a territory. But, in areas where it's very arid, like Namibia, Tswalu and the central Kalahari areas, the lion prides would have absolutely phenomenally huge territories. They'd need to travel far and wide to basics of water.
So James was just chatting about springbuck. Down where they are, and why you don't see springbuck up there. So, and that you'll see springbuck at Tswalu. So that was a really, really well-timed little segment. But there's something really interesting about springbuck that's going on in terms of their general ecology. And I'm not going to talk about the individual animal over here. But springbuck numbers used to be recorded in the absolute millions. There are records from the central areas of South Africa called the Karoo, people camping or, having an outspan, and a herd taking 3 days to pass their camp. And they estimated those aggregations were millions strong. You find that springbuck numbers seem to be declining across most areas of their range, and there are various theories surrounding that, some more contentious than others, but the general premise being is that as climates slowly start shifting to a warmer setting, there's more CO2 available, or more CO2 in the atmosphere, which makes that very, very good for woody plant growth. And as you get more and more and more woody species taking over, what we call bush densification, so the area becomes less and less hospitable to springbuck, and not necessarily in terms of a feeding thing, but in terms of more cover for small predators like caracal, jackal, those kind of things. And then you start getting increased losses of lambs during the lambing season. That's just the tip of the iceberg. The problem there is that in the absence of your big predators, because a lot of your larger predators will actually control the smaller predators that will be going for springbuck. So leopards, if they've been eradicated, leopards are actually super important for controlling things like jackal. And as you get less and less numbers of these big apex predators, so your small ones, that cohort of these mid-size and smaller predators just starts taking over, and they are the ones that are going to be nailing springbuck. The other thing is that if you look at the American passenger pigeon, and we chatted about this briefly a couple of days ago, that population of passenger pigeons, when it was afforded official, really, really tough protection, there's probably 20 or 30,000 of them left. Unfortunately, they just didn't have that critical mass in the individual flocks to breed successfully. And I suspect there's a couple of factors at play in the decline in springbuck numbers across their range, where herd sizes generally are becoming smaller and smaller and smaller. That coupled with bit of bush encroachment, that coupled with increased predation by what we call these meso predators, the smaller and mid-sized predators, just becomes an untenable thing for a species like a springbuck. There's so many factors at play, and often people try and look for a single answer to solve a problem and say, but if it's bush encroachment, just get rid of the bush. It's not as simple as that. Again, we need to look at these species as functional parts of ecosystems, not as a springbuck. That springbuck by itself means nothing. It needs to be looked at in terms of the functional context of that organism. That's when we'll start understanding these systems better. I'm just going to pull forward a fraction here. But it's so interesting, sure. So Tswalu is one of the few areas actually where you get springbuck and impala in the same area, and they did occur here together historically. We know this, there's very, very good records of that. There's a superb book by a chap called Skeed, and he did a series of books called on the historical distribution and abundance of large mammals in the Southern African sub-region, and it's well recorded that springbuck and impala actually occurred side by side in these areas, but still utilizing different aspects of the habitat within the area.
Alright, so we are still in the process, so we are just on the road at the moment where we've lost that leopard at this point. He has given us the slip, and we suspect that he was moving along a game trail that headed straight towards this section, so we're hoping that we might spot him as he comes and he crosses the road. There's also a herd of elephants around us at this point, so what might have happened is he probably got too close to them and realized that he's going to have to move around and then change direction. But it looked like he was on a casual stroll. He was kind of patrolling, but also looking for something small to hunt. You can see there's one of the elephants. Peter, that is typical Makoti male. Well, I guess that's also typical leopard. Like often just as you think you got them, they're moving as casual as they can, and the next thing they just disappear. Now with all the termite mounds around at the moment, there's a good chance he might have changed direction even just to check the different mounds around. Now with all of these elephants spread out, it might be difficult to actually know exactly where he's went. So we're going to sit here a while, a little long, myself and Owen, and see if we might get lucky.
Surprise, everyone. I've been missing in action, but I have a big surprise. We have Tandy. And hold on. Not too far behind. We have someone else who wants to meet you all. Hey, Tandy girl. Thanks for coming on to Djuma. Okay, Theo, here. Coming through the thicket. Running here. Tandy's little son. Sorry, I'm dancing for the other vehicle. Oh, the internet's breaking apparently, according to Kirsten. That is great news. Okay, I'm going to turn around now, Theo, because there's another vehicle here. So I'm going to move so that we can keep an eye on them. We actually broke our antenna, so we were out of action for most of the drive, and here we go. Okay, we're going to just follow them behind very carefully. She's coming over from Torchwood. Just going to... He's so small. Oh, many of you are saying this is amazing. Yes, I haven't participated in much of today's drive due to a broken vehicle, but this is worth it. Okay. So Miss Tandy is obviously here. Cob's gone into the thicket for now. A little boy. Oh, thank you, Tandy, for finally being so obliging. And Tandy had two. This cub, the cub's there, Theo, the cub's there. The litter of two, unfortunately, she lost one. We don't know what happened. We can only really speculate. But here we have the Queen of Djuma and her son. always looking back at Mum. Just gonna let the other vehicle go. We're gonna share this sighting. Leapfrog, we call it. Thank you, guys. Okay, they've gone the other way, which means we can follow. I can see her. Do you know how long we have been waiting for this moment? But this is great news that they're both on Djuma. Maybe they'll be here tomorrow as well. I know that Mr. Henry, my partner in crime, is desperate to meet them. I've been complaining to Theo all afternoon about how I miss my spots, and well, I got 2. And Tandy's 14 years old, everyone. 14. It's very old for a leopardess. Oh, many of you are saying this is the best day ever. I just hope it gets better. I hope they make a kill and the 2 of them hang around Djuma. That's what we need. We need some time on Djuma. And could Tandy do? Tandy's tail is up, white flag. Something's clearly annoying her. Many of you are commenting on the size of his paws. Yes, they are huge. Just like lion cubs, I often find. Let's move, Theo, just to keep up with them. It's almost like the paws grow first, and then they have to grow into them. I find that with puppies as well. Huge, big paws that look slightly ridiculous, and then they grow into them as they get older. I cannot explain how happy I am. I'm probably just going to need to keep my game drive radio up. Stop here for y'all. And look at him just following Mum. Her behaviour with the cubs has definitely changed over the years. She's been a lot more secretive with this cub, and of course it probably comes from loss. She's lost 3 cubs in the space of, well, at least this year. And I mean a whole 12 months, not 2020. And her loss has probably caused her to, well, be a little bit different with her approach to motherhood. We were able to get very good views of Kalamba long before we got views of this little one. Where the cub dashed off to. It's full of beans. Where did he go? Anushka, lovely to hear from you. Now, normally male and female cubs have different ages of independence. So a male will stay with mum a lot longer. Hi! A male will stay with mum a lot longer than the female will. I might need you guys to go forward a little bit. So it's about 18 months for a female before she goes to independence. Thank you. And 2 years for a male. So the males are a bit more like mama's boys. And they stay with mummy a little bit longer. And it's normal, Anushka, for males to disperse. Hosanna's the perfect example. Hosanna was the prince around here for a long time. And of course, when it came to it, he had to disperse. He could no longer stay in his father's territory anymore, Tingana. And of course, it allows males to meet a whole new gene pool of ladies. And that's what it's all about. Genetics. If Hosanna had stayed here, a lot of the leopards around him are relatives. They share DNA, and therefore it wouldn't benefit him in any way. Although leopards can mate with relatives, inbreeding is very, very common. It can only last about 3 generations before you start to see the genetic sort of mutations and disruptions. Okay, we're losing light, but it's still light enough to stay with Tandy. But we're not allowed to use any artificial light. But of course we are equipped with infrared. I'm just going to be really careful here because I've lost, there they are. I also don't want to off-road after them. Okay, can you just get them through there, Theo? I'm not sure I want to bash after them in the dark. We'll just see where they're going. And Tandy's, this is her 7th litter, and she's done very, very well. She's raised some fine offspring. Okay, I'm gonna go forward, but I wonder. I'm not going to off-road after them, everyone. I'm sorry. Not at this time of night when my vision is compromised. I need the assistance of lights. I don't want to do that. So if they really have disappeared, then that's it. But at least they're on Djuma, and I think they'll be on Djuma tomorrow. Let me just do one quick scan. No, I think we may have lost visual, everyone. I'll sit on this road. I'll sit tight on this road for now. But I can't see them. Okay. That was so worth being out of action for. I'm going to sit in case they pop back out, but I'm not going to off-road after them. So, fingers crossed, everyone, we get one more visual before the drive ends.
So this is quite interesting, and it sounds like our colleagues are having some amazing sightings, so I'll look at a rock instead. But it's like desperate times call for desperate measures. Anyway, so this is a block of calcrete. It's essentially a calcium carbonate, so it's very, very soft. It's like chalk. You can actually scratch it and it comes off very, very easily. So it's white. And these are actually sedimentary deposits, so it's seabed deposits. But what I wanted to show you on this particular block, because there's a number of outcrops of it on Tswalu, is these beautiful little gnaw marks all around over here. All around over here. This whole piece over here, those smooth sections. These are gnaw marks from rodents. And again, this particular one is from porcupines. So porcupines are actually just using these exposed calcrete blocks, these blocks of carbonate, to actually gnaw on and sharpen their teeth. And not only sharpen their teeth, but it's very, very important to keep the teeth short, because they'll have quite an overbite and they'll actually end up not being able to feed if they can't if they can't gnaw and keep those teeth sharp, but also at a good length, because those incisors just keep growing and growing and growing. And that's why it's very, very important, if you do have pet rats, to actually give them something to gnaw and to stop their teeth getting too long. That's my 50 cents worth on looking after rats. Painter Girl says that would be a lovely rock for?
Sculpting.
For sculpting, oh yes, oh totally. Totally, yeah, no, you can sculpt these in all crazy ways. I haven't tried, but I would, if you're into sculpting, I'm sure that would be a really fun thing to use for sculpting. I actually want to, and it's very light. Here's actually even a better example. I'm just trying to, what is in our way here? There's a shadow here somewhere. I just don't know. Okay, there. Look at these. Here you can actually see even better the old teeth marks. Look at that. And I don't know how well you can see it, but you see those tiny ones there? You can see it? Those fine striations, those would be probably a smaller kind of rodent, maybe gerbils or something, but these larger ones here are the porcupines. So cool, eh? So cool. And these rocks are very, very light. I mean, they're not. This is not. It's not heavy. These things. This one probably weighs about 60 kilograms.
It's worrying that we're closer to home.
Yes. I'll tell you what else is not very heavy is this particular spotlight. I'm not sure if anyone showed you this before. Did you show anybody this? This spotlight, unfortunately, had a literal meltdown yesterday. And, well, this will be certainly near the end of its career. It is not very heavy either. It's only half the size that it was when I left here. Now has a spotlight-sized hole on the left sleeve. So, these are the hazards of safari, you know. They get very hot, as you can see. It's not a nightjar, is it? Look at this beautiful nightjar that we found. It's just gorgeous. It's cunningly disguised as a stick. Ladybird, you say we need Spotlight Steve to fix it. Yes, remember the days of Spotlight Steve, when Steve was the Spotlight King and he used to fix all the spotlights? Ah, the good old days. Lions ate my mum. You say a melted spotlight makes you think of Jamie. Didn't Jamie have a melted spotlight? For those of you who don't know, Jamie was a long-standing presenter here. Wonderful brain and presenter generally. I don't recall her spotlight melting, but I can well imagine that it happened. No, I do remember it happening. Jamie's off trying to be a vet at the moment. Saw her in Johannesburg. So far so good on that road for her. There's a real nightjar. It's flown off. Ah, most likely the fiery necked. It was a little one. Now, with any luck, it being the 4th of August, or no, 6th of August, it's actually not too early to start looking into the skies for the return of the Wahlberg's eagle. So we must start doing that, because it was I guess because of the amount of rain we had last year, I reckon that they could come back round about now. So keep looking out. And also the yellow-billed kites. Phinda may well find a yellow-billed kite relatively soon. And then we'll really know that winter's coming to an end.
That was such an amazing sighting. We've left them, everyone. They went into the block, and as I mentioned, I don't want to off-road after a cub who's very mobile, and also the lights. I need light to see. When it gets sort of that dusky time of day, my eyes barely work. So that's us left them, but it was still a wonderful sight and great prospects for tomorrow. I know that James is desperate to see them as well, so I'm sure both of us will tackle it tomorrow to see if we can find them on Djuma. And if Tandy makes a kill, that's going to be the best part of it all. Now the cub's only around 6 months, if I remember correctly, and it's definitely a little boy. So she's obviously being fiercely protective of this young one. And being sort of the sole parent, given parental care, It's Tandy's job to raise the offspring. She already lost one from that same litter. And of course, she's got to navigate through so many obstacles out here. Hyenas, lions, leopards, even wild dogs actually. Wild dogs would go for a cub in broad daylight if the opportunity presented itself. Even elephants trampling past a den. There's so many things out here that could hurt her little cub, so she's fiercely guarding it. Tandy is fierce, after all, everyone. And I remember a few years ago when I first started, we all spoke about, is this going to be Tandy's last litter? And she keeps on giving. She keeps on giving. She is a strong, incredible leopardess. So I'm going to bumble home into the night with a big smile on my face, and I hope you're all smiling too.
And we are back with the Pride, where the whole situation has changed completely from what we saw earlier this afternoon. You can see now they're all heads up, they're looking around, they're listening out. With nighttime, there's a lot of sounds. It starts becoming more and more prominent, and these lions are more than likely going to try and move towards an area where they might try and hunt tonight. Now, earlier this afternoon, one of the lionesses got up and moved up the bank further down along the riverbed. Now, all of these are looking in that direction at the moment. What's incredible about the situation is we are in the infrared mode, and that's why it is black and white. But if you look at the colors of these animals, they blend in perfectly from what we can see in the riverbed sand, except for the two white ones. There's the male, always behind the Pride as usual. He's probably the last one to wake up this evening. The other one's next to the white young male. There we go. You can see they're turning their heads around in different directions, trying to get an idea of which sounds are coming from which side. How amazing it would be to follow these lions into this evening, but where they're going and the way they move, I'm sure they're going to move a lot tonight. It's going to be quite tricky to follow them. And we've had an absolutely amazing day with them. I think all around we've had an absolutely amazing day. And you can see some of them are busy getting up. But I do think they're going to spend quite a bit of time here before they're actually moving. Usually these lions make very, very sure about a direction that they're going to move into before they actually start to move. They've rested all day, they've gathered their energy, and they're going to spend a lot of that energy tonight moving around. Any unsuspecting antelope that might be moving down into this riverbed now might not even necessarily see them. And that might be exactly what they're wanting. So, after a great day, I want to thank all the viewers for joining us, and I hope that tomorrow you'll join us again on our live safari. And good evening.